All right, welcome back to The Practice.
Yay.
And we're here going into this week, and I'm really excited just to hear all the feedback from how it went in your groups last week. Now, here's the thing with many, we've got all these different small groups all around South Orange County, and some of you, because of your makeup, you're able to meet. Everybody is meeting together in 1 week, the men and the women together. But then we've also got some other groups, especially those with small kids, because of the schedule, they can't really meet that way. So the women are meeting 1 week, the men are meeting another week, and so that's the schedule that helps them to be able to have this kind of connection and community.
Right.
And so, as we've got all these different groups that are going, so other people's groups may not look exactly like yours, your group may not look exactly like everybody else's, but we all want to be able to kind of, do all of this together.
We're going to muddle along together
That's right.
somehow. We have to go a little bit slower because we have children.
Right.
But we want, we know that God gently leads those who have young.
So beautiful.
So we want to gently lead you to say it's okay to meet every other week, men
That's right.
and women.
In fact, that's what our group is doing. So the women met last week, the men are going to meet this week. So here's how we want to do this with the practices, that we're going to give you, like every other week, we're going to give you a practice that you can do with your small group.
Yes.
Because we're also trying to develop some new and healthy habits for our discussion groups or our discipleship groups. We're going to make them identity groups, right? Like we talked about
That's
last
right.
week.
Identity groups. Thanks for remembering.
So we're going to give you, like every other week, there's going to be a practice that you can do within your identity group together.
Yeah.
And then on the alternate weeks, like today, we're going to give you a practice that you can do on your own. Now, if your group is meeting every week with everybody, you can also do this practice in your group.
Yeah.
And so this one can be done either individually in your quiet times this week, or it can be done in your group, however is best suited for you to be able to use that.
Right.
So, so with that, we want to tell you what we're going to do today. So I'm actually excited about this.
Okay,
Go for
cool.
it.
I'm going to tell. Okay, so we're going to do an ancient practice of Lectio Divina. Now, so let me tell you what this means. This means that we're going to read the Bible and reflect on it. So don't think that it's like, oh my gosh, I've never heard of this. Okay,
Right.
so we may never have used those words, but you definitely have been doing this practice. Now, it's a little more focused. So I'm going to try to tell you, sort of what the difference is between regular old Bible study. So there's Bible study, which is really important. And that's to, gain this information from the Bible. And you want to make sure that, who is the author writing to? And, well, what was the situation? What's the context of the passage? And what are some of the Hebrew words? And what are maybe the Greek, if it's in the New Testament? Or, you want to get into that technical study of the information. And that is very important. Lectio Divina is just a little bit different. It really just means sacred reading. And it is designed really more for a devotional reading. So it's designed not for the information in particular, but for transformation. That's the idea, is that what is this specifically trying to address? How is God speaking to me through what he has written?
Right.
Okay. So when you're looking at the ancient practice, just as a little history lesson here, you would go, okay, so we would read a passage and you want to try to read it slowly.
Slowly.
So sometimes we do read the Bible a little too fast and we miss because we forget we're reading something that is really profound. It's kind of like eating chocolate too fast. It's not good. It's not a good idea.
Actually, that's okay. You can do that.
No.
Yes, you can.
You're supposed to savor your desserts, and you eat, just a little bit, and you taste it, you savor it, and then you drink a little coffee.
No, I don't
and then
think so.
And then you eat a little bit. Okay.
But the idea of reading slow, I think, is really good, especially when you've read, if you've been reading out of the NIV for 25 years and you know everything, you've almost got it memorized and you're just going through it. The words aren't hitting you in the same way. And you go really fast and you're like, yeah, I know how all this fits together. But the goal is to, if you slow down and you think about, wait a second, what does that word actually mean? Or why does that phrase fit in there the way that it does?
Exactly. Very nice. Okay.
I'm still going to eat my desserts as fast as I want.
Okay, we'll talk about that later. But so we slow down and we savor the reading.
Yeah.
So we read a passage pretty slowly. And you want to notice as you're reading that there might be a word or a phrase that just jumps out at you. And may not even know why, but all of a sudden it just connects with you. And the idea is just to notice that little hook that it's almost like God is fishing in there.
Right.
He's put a hook out there.
I like the word interrupt. Sometimes
Yeah.
when we'll do it and somebody will say, what interrupted you? So as you're reading through, something will jump out at you and it like interrupts your flow and your train of thought. Yeah.
Exactly. So you get that and then you go, okay, I noticed something. So God has knocked on my door. And then sometimes you'll read it again, you know, but this time it's really for listening. Okay, so what does that mean to me? What is, you're sort of, the first process is you're tasting. It's kind of like a digestive thing, you're tasting. But then the second time you're sort of swallowing it. And you're going, okay, what is that? Why is God bringing that to my attention? And so after that, you want to write. Now, if you're meeting in a group, you would share that with another person. And an effective way to do that, instead of having, 8 people share, is maybe to just pair up with someone and 2 people say, this is what hit me. And this is what I, why I think, this is what it made me think. But if you're alone, then you can just write that down. So you're kind of digesting at that point.
Right.
And then the 4th step is to respond to the invitation. So whatever's happened, whatever God has been feeding you, we're trying to eat the word, digest it. We taste it, we swallow it, we digest it. But the whole point of that whole process is to give us energy for our physical body, right? So spiritually, it's the same thing. The whole point of reading and taste and digest, all of that is to be able to respond to it in some way. So God is offering you an invitation. It's an invitation to think differently, or to do something differently, or to understand something in a new way, or to enlighten your mind, you know? So it's just that's the sort of the ancient practice of Lectio Divina. Now you're informed, now you know.
So what we want to do today is to take a passage, and you can turn over there now if you want so you can look at it, but it's in Isaiah chapter 43.
What are we reading in though?
We're reading today out of the New Living Translation. So we're in the NLT. So
you might have to scroll.
Yeah. So tap over to Isaiah chapter 43. Make sure you're on the New Living Translation. And I want to read through. We're going to read verses 1 and 2 and the first part of verse 3. And I'm going to read through this a little bit slowly, and then I'm just going to pause and give you a moment to consider it and to think about it and see what interrupted you, or see what surprised you, see what jumped out at you. And then I'll take a moment, and then I want to read through it again a second time. And then I'm going to ask you some questions that will just maybe help kind of stimulate some thinking there. Okay?
Cool.
So, Isaiah chapter 43, verse 1. But now, O Jacob, listen to the Lord who created you. O Israel, the one who formed you, says, do not be afraid, for I have ransomed you. I have called you by name, and you are mine. When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up. The flames will not consume you. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. All right, so take a moment. See which word or phrase jumped out at you, surprised you. I want to read through it one more time. But now, O Jacob, listen to the Lord who created you. O Israel, the one who formed you says, do not be afraid, for I have ransomed you. I have called you by name, and you are mine. When you go through deep waters, I will be with you. When you go through rivers of difficulty, you will not drown. When you walk through the fire of oppression, you will not be burned up, and the flames will not consume you. For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. So feel free to even pause the video right now and just meditate on that passage, on what you think God is drawing your attention to, what you think he's trying to say to you right now. And some questions for you, maybe to consider as you're thinking through this, is that how does it make you feel when God says, I have called you by name and you are mine? How does it make you feel when you really think that God knows your name and he is claiming you as his? Are you going through any deep waters right now? Do you feel like that the waters are rising and it's up to my chin? I don't know if I can keep going. Is there anything like that going on? Can you hear the voice of God saying, I will be with you? Are you finding yourself going through a difficult river where the water is rushing fast and you're not sure if you can keep your feet? Can you hear God's voice saying, you will not drown? And you feel like that everything is heating up and there is challenges all around and problems all around. Can you picture this, that God says you will not be burned up and the flames will not consume you? For I am the Lord your God, the Holy One of Israel, your Savior. So this God who created us and promises to protect us in these ways, this is the God to whom we belong. And this is the God who loves us. So spend some time with this passage, see what jumps out. If you're not in your group, share it with somebody. Talk to somebody about it. Tell them what you got out of it. And let these words encourage you this week. Anything else? All right. Love you guys.